Hello everybody, Train King James here, and once again we have the next seasonal tier list. Very excited to have this video ready for you guys today. So without further ado, let's just get into this. We have Thomas and Friends Season 4. We have now watched over 100 episodes of the show, and we still have many more to go. Other than that, yeah, let's just get into this. We're moving in through the classic series. You know, we're kind of hitting Thomas's peak. So, yeah. This is the last season that really focused on adapting Railway series stories until season 20. But this is the last model season that really does it. So, like always, we're going to go in order. Just give me a second to find the first episode because it's all out of order. And I'm not sure what they used for the picture of this one. Oh, here it is. So, first episode is Grand Puff, and as I rank these, I am going to rank them, you know, as individual episodes. It's one of the best episodes of the show, but I think it really works well with Sleeping Beauties. I am going to put it in A tier, not quite S tier. I think it's a beautiful episode in and of itself. It's got a very solemn episode, really serious, very tonally different than most episodes of the show, but I do think it's an A tier episode. I think it's better when you have Sleeping Beauty with it. But I am going to put Sleeping Beauty in S tier, and here's why. As somebody, when I grew up with this episode, I didn't know they adapted Grand Puff until Rusty the Rescue came out on DVD. That was like 2009, I think, something like that. 2007, maybe. I don't know. I don't remember the year. And when that DVD came out, right, I discovered that episode for the first time. I didn't know they adapted it. I thought they kind of like merged the two stories and just cut out Stanley. I didn't know Smudger existed either. This was a very weird existence because I didn't know about like the Rusty the Rescue VHS tape. I didn't know about Smudger. I didn't know about like any of this stuff. But this episode does such a good recap of what Grand Puff is that I honestly thought they just adapted Sleeping Beauty. It's a beautiful episode, very different, and I'm very loose with how, and I want to make sure I emphasize this, I'm very loose with how the show utilizes its canon within this, because obviously the show does not follow the Railway series, the timelines and all that, so I try to judge things within the TV series, so obviously within the TV series, the way this episode is adapted is really well adapted. There are things that are within the TV series I don't like how they're adapted, and we'll talk about that more when we get to it. I will say, I kind of wish this episode was a season finale. I really would have loved to hold that cliffhanger of whether or not Duke is rescued a lot longer. It is interesting that these are the two episodes that start the season, at least in the US. Anyway, the next episode is Bulldog. In this episode, it's so close, but I think I'm going to just put it in A tier. It's close. Oh, I think I'm gonna put it in A tier. Just barely. No, we're putting it in S tier. We're gonna put it in S tier. It's a great episode, an awesome, beautiful visuals. I mean, this season is just visually stunning with all the narrow gauge episodes, and this is something I'm gonna bring up a lot in the show, or bring up a lot with the series this year. So, visually beautiful episode. You see the nice, you know, rocky cliffs, all that. Anyway, moving on. Don't want to linger around too long. We have You Can't Win. This episode I think is B tier. It's the only one that isn't really told as a flashback for some reason. It's just we just kind of jump into it. I think it's a fine story. I think it's the least special of the Duke ones, but it's still a very nice one. But this is a very strong start to the season. Four Little Engines is next. And this episode is S tier. In my opinion, it's a beautiful story about Skarloey. I will say, it's interesting that this episode is the first one we get introduced to Skarloey in. And mainly because it's the last story of that book, and Peter, Sam, and Sir Handel are already on the railway, but then, like, A Bad Day for Sir Handel, which is the episode afterwards, establishes that's the episode they first arrive. And I think it would have been better to swap them around a little bit, so That's just me. I do have like some nitpicks about how the season's like airing order is, because I do think some of the continuity is weird. Because, you know what, I don't want to spoil some of my thoughts on that. A bad day for Sir Hand. Oh, I should talk more about this episode actually. I really like it. It's a beautiful episode. Love Skarloey's hero moment, obviously. I love that we just see this crooked engine. This is an episode that I loved whenever it came on TV as a kid. It was fun to watch, one of my favorites. Definitely an S tier. Now we do a bad day for Sir Handel. And this episode is going into the A tier, just behind Grandpuff, yeah. I think it's a really nice episode, a nice introduction to Sir Handel as a kid. Well, not an introduction, but nice seeing his introduction to the Skarloey Railway. I do think that this, yeah, I still really do believe it should have come first, but I do like this episode. I like the visuals. I'm going to repeat myself a lot about the visuals, but they really are nice. Peter, Sam, and the Refreshment Lady. I feel like a broken record putting all the Peter, Sam episodes in B tier, but that will not last forever. This episode is really, really good. I do like it. I just think it's like, again, not that interesting. It's kind of Thomas and the Guard again, except this time it's a Refreshment Lady. It's kind of a rehash of a story we've already seen, but again, nice visuals, nice music. And where are you? You are, I just saw it. Oh, I think this is it. Rusty helps Peter Sam, aka Trucks. I don't know why they changed the title in the US. I don't know, I prefer Trucks, but this is an S tier episode. Going towards the top here. I mean, this episode is crazy. I mean, this is one of the most violent, crazy crashes we get in the show to this point. Just so much destruction, just pure awesomeness. And I'll be honest, and maybe this is a bit of a hot take, but I really like the fact that the music in some versions of this episode is cut out, and it's very largely silent. It's just sound effects. I honestly prefer it. Maybe it's because it's what I grew up with, because most versions I watched of this episode had like little to no music. But I think it really adds to the ambiance. It gives it a really creepy, weird feeling, and you're just thinking, oh no, things are going to go wrong. This is going to be bad. And, you know, one thing I really want to give kudos to, in all honesty, is a lot of these narrow gauge episodes, like the season, they start us off with like having Thomas and the others introduce them. But as we're starting to get through it, we're seeing less and less of the standard gauge in terms of them interacting. Like, in this episode, obviously, Gordon and Sir Handel interact. We have other ones interact in other episodes. But I do like that it's not just Thomas talking to them. I like that the show decided to hold back at this point for various reasons. But obviously, this is not something so much with this episode. This is just something I've been really... It's been in the back of my mind as we've been going through these. Alright. Where are you? Home at Last. B tier episode. Simple story, not a lot to it. Again, it's very pretty. We see the Skarloey Railway, but that's pretty much it. Some of these episodes are just very pretty episodes, but not a ton of substance behind it as much. We get introduced to Duncan. I think his better episode is the next one, and that is Rock and Roll, which I will put in A tier. I do really enjoy the story. I really like the development of Duncan here, the development of his and Rusty's relationship. Obviously really like Rusty as a character. And, yeah, it's just a fun episode, nice crash. Love the scenes of them trying to lever him back on the tracks. Pretty straightforward. Special Funnel. This episode is such a unique atmosphere, because it's winter, but it's rainy, and you do see snow and ice, but it's not like snowing. It has a lot of gray clouds. They really experimented hard with atmosphere in this season, and I cannot stop gushing about it. So for that reason, Special Funnel is going to go here. Again, it's a simple story. It's kind of a stuff happens the story more than it is like a character-driven narrative. It's very much like Peter Sam's funnel's loose and the engines make fun of him, and then winter comes and destroys a bridge, and then Peter Sam loses his funnel, and like it's a very like stuff happens story, but it's still a very beautiful, well shot episode. So 8 tier I think is fine for it. Where are you? If you saw my top 10 episodes video, you know this episode is going up high. Steamroller is one of my favorites. Um, one of my favorite episodes of the show. Just an amazing episode. I love Sir Handel and George's dynamic. George is one of my favorite characters in the show, despite only really having 2 episodes. I don't care. He's amazing. You can't hate him. Yeah, I don't have to say much more on that. Passengers in Polish, I believe, is next. And another great Duncan story. I think I actually like it a little bit more than Rock and Roll. Again, more of a stuff happens story, but I love the music in the episode. It gets so many beautiful visuals. I mean, they did not waste time just shooting the Skarloey Railway. They said we have 15 episodes of this. We're really 14, and we're just going to maximize it. We're going all out. So, great visuals. I love Duncan's character in this. I love his complaining. Gallant Little Engine. We're going to put you in S tier. Amazing story. Beautiful visuals. The rain. I mean, I think they finally have really figured out how to make a good, convincing storm. Each season they get a little bit better at it, and I think now they finally have gotten to the point where, like, yeah, we really nailed it. And spoiler alert for season 5, you know, we're gonna... Spoiler alert for season 5, you know, we're gonna see that even more, how much further they go. Let's spend a little time to talk about this one, because this episode... Rusty to the Rescue might be the most controversial episode of the classic series. And not by way of really anything bad. Well, it is bad, but it's weird. And I will state my opinion on this episode, because this is highly debated. There's a lot of people who really love it, and there's a lot of people who really hate it. So, this episode is basically, you know... it's kind of like a sequel, sort of, so to speak, of Escape. And, you know, Rusty goes to the other railway and rescues Stepney. And I kind of lean in the middle. Because on the positive, again, visuals and music, stunning. Like in this episode. They are just stunning. And if you hold a blindfold to it in terms of, like, the implications of the story itself is fine. But when you extrapolate the story and what it means for the continuity in the universe, it's very weird. And I'm sorry, I just can't get behind narrow gauge engines traveling to the other railway. I just cannot get behind that. And there's just a lot. I'm going to put this episode in C tier, because this episode does so much I really like and so much I dislike. And I think the biggest problem with this episode is continuity. Because in this episode, it's established that Rusty works on this branch line on Sodor. Right? And we know it's on Sodor because we see Thomas visit it. And I want you to keep that in mind when we get to the next episode. And, you know, he wants to find an engine to work the line. So he goes to the other railway, rescues Stepney, brings him back. He works on this line on Sodor. And it's weird because of how it affects the continuity of the other 3 stories. So if you don't know... In the Railway series, there's a story that precedes 3 of the other Stepney stories that were adapted from the Railway series called Bluebells of England. And that story is basically just a conversation between Percy and Douglas. It's kind of a dark story, but it also just isn't really a lot happening in it because it's just a conversation. And it's kind of more of a prologue than it is like a story. So I can understand why they didn't adapt it. And they kind of do a little bit. You see Percy and Douglas together in this episode, and you also see them together in the next episode at Knapford, where they use some of those lines from that story, but not too much. So they do kind of adapt it, they just kind of don't. And I have a theory on how I would actually handle this, but I don't know. I have to put this episode into C tier. So, Thomas and Stepney is the next episode, and I want to continue the conversation for Rusty and the Rescue and why continuity doesn't make sense. The episode basically makes it seem like Stepney lives far away on the small branch line. This was a branch line that Thomas visited yesterday. Thomas has also never heard of this branch line. That is now apparently a very famous branch line. And the problem is, Thomas and Stepney, Train Stops Play, and Bowled Out are written basically in the continuity that Stepney works on the Bluebell Railway. But Rusty the Rescue establishes that the Bluebell Railway, or the branch line that he runs, is on Sodor. So no, it's not far away. That doesn't make any sense. Like, I don't understand the continuity of this story, and it doesn't make sense within the TV series because the episodes basically make it seem like he's not on Sodor, but he is on Sodor. So which is it? So, in my opinion, what I would have done is I either A, would not have just adopted Rusty the Rescue, and I would have taken a small chunk of Bluebells of England and put that into Thomas and Stepney and just use that as the full episode, similar to what they did, just make that Knapford scene longer, and then maybe have the Knapford scene happen first with a little more dialogue between Percy and Douglas. Stepney comes, and then maybe afterwards Percy talks to Thomas about it, and he's from this branch line far away that we never see, and we don't have the weird continuity of Rusty going to the other railway. So there's that. Or you make Rusty the Rescue a flashback, and Stepney works on the Bluebell Railway, and this was before Rusty even came to Sodor. Both work better, but it is still weird. So I'm not going to judge this episode, Thomas and Stepney, for what Rusty the Rescue set it up with, because I think I would have to ding like the other 3 episodes for similar continuity problems. So for that reason, I'm going to rank Thomas and Stepney. This might be slightly controversial, but I am going to put it in B tier. I do really enjoy this episode. It's just not my favorite of the Stepney trilogy. We'll get to that one in a bit. Or quadrilogy, I guess. It's 4 stories. Anyway, I really do like this one. I like the visuals. Again, Season 4, just beautiful visuals. Love the shots, the cinematography of this episode. It's actually interesting that, like, a lot less... Again, it's another episode where there was a lot less music in it. And I didn't even know that. So, it's kind of interesting. I don't know. It always felt weird to me that Thomas is jealous of this small branch line that he was literally on, like, an episode ago and knows about, but then suddenly doesn't know about. It's weird. And I think it's what happens when you try to change a story without changing the other. So, I don't know. That's just me. Train Stops Play, I'm also going to put it in B tier as well, but I think it's a little bit lower. I would put it solidly in B tier here. Right behind Thomas and Stepney. I do really enjoy this one. Other than that, I mean, I don't really have much to say. It's a really nice episode. I like the chase aspect. I love George Carlin's voice for Caroline. I shouldn't be treated like this. Like, I love that southern accent. It kind of makes sense she has a southern accent, even though she's not, like, American. It fits her. It suits her. So, I do like Caroline a lot. Yeah, that's about it. Bowled Out is my favorite Stepney episode. I'm going to put it in S tier. This episode had... it almost made my top 10. And there's another one in this season, I think, that either almost did or did. I can't remember if I did put it in my top 10. But this is one that I really, really enjoy. I love Bowler in this episode. I love how snide and awful he is. He just shows up to the yard and just pisses everybody off. So, ooh. Yeah, it's just another great episode I really enjoy. Sorry about that, my voice is going a little bit. We'll try to speed this up. But Bowled Out, banger episode. Really not a lot to dislike this season. Henry and the Elephant is next. I think I would rank this right around in B tier. I do like how this episode... And I guess I should bring this up. So, really the next few episodes of Season 4 are stories that were just kind of done out of order. That this one should have been adapted in Season 1. There's others, it should have been adapted other places. I'm not sure why this one was skipped. I guess they didn't have an elephant prop or didn't care to make it. But I think this one works well without being a part of, like, the strike episodes. So I do think this story is a good example of one that works on its own, and then there's others that I think aren't as good examples of working on their own. Next episode, we have Toad Stands By, and again, another one of my favorites. I think I'm going to put it right here. Just a really fun episode. I love Scruffy and the trucks dynamic. It's one of my favorite stories from Thomas in general. I just like that it's pretty much like Scruffy, like Oliver / Toad maybe attempted murder on Scruffy, and it's just everyone. I just love how demented it is that like Scruffy's like begging for his life, and then he's ripped apart, and we cut to like Toad and Duck with like these big grins on their faces, like yeah, we got him, and like obviously don't kill him off in the TV series, but I've always thought that was kind of cool. Yeah, not much to say. I'm really not spending too much time on the episodes, but, you know, we're just kind of flying through. This is a really nice season. It's one of my favorites. Next episode is Bullseyes. And again, this one's a little bit more of the tone of one that maybe should have been... Like, this one probably should have been adapted. I'm not entirely sure why it wasn't in Season 2. Like, they made cows in Season 2. It wouldn't have been that hard to have a bull. I don't know why they didn't adapt this one. This one never really made sense, but at least they did adapt it. It kind of works okay on its own. It's not the best example. We'll get to the ones that really don't. But yeah, that's my thought on that. Thomas of the Special Letter is great. I really enjoy this episode. I'm going to put it in A tier. I think this episode was really... I think this episode was fun. I like how they kind of take the crash to a new level. Like, is it extreme? Yes. Do I care? No. So we're just going to have fun with it. Like, could Thomas realistically have been fixed that fast? No. But who cares? It was a fun episode. Thomas Meets the Queen / Paint Pots and Queens is an episode I do struggle with because, again, this one is the example of one where they tried to go back and adapt an episode, but it doesn't quite work. It's weird because they make it take place, like, directly after Down the Mine. But also, then, there's characters that have, like, arrived and are in the background and a prominent story, like Duck, and it's just, ugh. I wish they had made this episode a flashback, and it would have worked better. But as it stands, I am putting it in B tier. I think right around here is fine. I do really enjoy the episode, especially the music. Especially when the Queen comes. They obviously have God Save the Queen, or My Country 'Tis of Thee for my American viewers, just to piss off the Brits. And, I believe it's called Zadok the Priest is the song that plays when Gordon enters that looping melody that we hear. That building melody that eventually goes into God Save the Queen. I learned that one from Oliver Duck years ago. If you know me, this episode is going high. Fish is one of my favorites because I think it's my favorite atmospheric episodes, and it has one of my favorite... It has maybe my favorite shot of the series, the shot where Henry leaves the harbor, and you just hear his heavy breathing, well, puffing, I should say, because I think of the engine heaving, big engine breathing, like from Night Train, but his big, heavy, puffing, and you hear the ambience of the trucks, and it's just really nice shot that just feels real. And again, this episode, unique lighting because it kind of takes place at dawn, like right before the break of dawn. And I want to tell this story because I tell this story to people all the time. And if you do relate to this, please comment because I want to make sure I'm not crazy. So I used to grow up watching a lot of the classic series on Sprout, which in America was like PBS, but it was like 24-hour PBS. And Sprout aired classic series episodes when I was a kid. And this one I remember this night because I watched it twice, because Sprout usually like looped its nighttime programming like once or twice or something like that. So you would catch you could catch an episode like 6, one at like 8, maybe like one at 11 or something. And I watched this episode at like 8. And this was the first time I'd seen Fish. And for whatever reason, the episode like abruptly ends and it cuts off at a weird spot. So it ends like Duck crashes into the back of Henry. We cut to Henry, and we cut quickly back to Duck, and then we went straight to credits. I have no proof of this. So I was like, what? That's how it ends? Because I think I accidentally was a little late, and I showed up, and then I saw that. So I was like, oh, well, I haven't seen this episode before, so I want to go back and watch it. So I watched the full episode again, later on at 11, and it did the same thing. And then the next time I saw it, like weeks later it came on, they had the full episode on, like with the ending. And I've asked around, like, has anybody else seen this before? Does anybody have, like, a VHS, like, TV recording of it or something? Like, does anybody else remember this? Which, I don't know why I remember this, but I'm very, 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 very positive that this happened. That this episode had a weird cutoff point. It literally cuts off on the picture. But besides that, I really like this episode. I love Flying Kipper stories. I mean, I can't stop, like, gushing about this episode. It's one of my favorites. But that's just a weird story. I have attachment to it. I don't know why I remember this. I know it happened. So if anybody remembers seeing the episode exactly like that, please let me know, because that would be great. Special Attraction. This is a very weird episode. I love the crash. The crash alone is the reason why it's not going in C tier, but it's very close because I think the story's kind of clunky. It's kind of the first time in a while that they've like merged two stories together. Like Thomas and Stepney kind of does it, but this was the first time really in a long time that they took two distinct episodes or stories from the Railway series and smashed them together, and it's kind of awkward how they do it. So it's not bad, but I don't know, it could have been better. Also, the ending, maybe it's just the way Carlin narrates it, but the ending always confuses me with the way the shots are. I get confused between Percy and Toby who's talking, because Carlin kind of uses the same voice, and the way they cut between the two of them, I can't tell who's talking at some points. It's like the one time it happens. I don't know, maybe that's just me. Mind That Bike is an episode that can kind of be up and down in the community, and I think it's just too visually beautiful for me to kind of put it much lower than maybe here. Actually, yeah, right here. I do like this episode. I like seeing Thomas and Percy with the mail again. I like being at Callan. It's just kind of a unique location. It's weird that Thomas and Percy are there for some reason. I guess because they didn't have Farquhar this season, they're like, alright, what's our best option? So they went with this station. So, other than that, that's about it for Season 4. So as you guys see here, no episodes below D tier or F tier. We have one C tier episode. So the season was very, like, either really great or just really good. So it'll be interesting. I'm thinking about, when I'm done this, doing, like, a tier list of the seasons where I assign point values to tiers and whatnot, based on, like, how many episodes in a tier you have. So, like, S tier may have, like, 3 points, 2 points, 1 point, 0 points, -1 points, -2 points, and then grade the seasons that way based on how I rank episodes. It's interesting kind of going through this. I'm really interested to watch Season 5, because that's the first season where there really isn't, like, pre-established continuity from the Railway series. Now we're really using, like, the TV series is really creating its own canon now, and now we really get to see the Season 5 kind of build upon itself, or is it kind of jumbled around the same way that Season 3 and a bit of Season 4 were. But I did really enjoy Season 4. So with that, I'll leave you guys now. This is Train King James signing off with the Season 4 tier list. Enjoy, guys.